here with Cross My Heart Ministry. Well, it's Monday. It's time for Martha Monday, and you probably have guessed that I record those videos a little ahead of time so that there's time for editing and posting. And so this week's Martha Monday video that we're going to bring to you in just a few minutes needs a little bit of an explanation before we get started. So this week, let me just say up front that I'm going to be totally transparent, and we're all going to have a good laugh at Laura's expense. Because you see, I recorded this video. I was making loaded baked potato soup. Here's what happened. I realized that I had some potatoes that were just laying around and were getting starting to get wrinkly. I wasn't going to be making a big meal with mashed potatoes and a roast that I had bought those for. I'd already done that. So I had these potatoes left over, and I didn't just want to ignore them, and I knew that if I did that, it would be a week or so and it would just be time to throw them away. Well, it had gotten chilly here again in Northwest Arkansas, and so I decided that it was time for some soup. It just felt like soup weather, and I was looking at those potatoes and I was thinking about a Martha Monday video. So long story short, I got online and looked at some different recipes for loaded baked potato soup and just sort of combined ingredients and made up my own based upon what I had on hand. I've never really made loaded baked potato soup. I've had it out and it's just yummy and delicious. So I decided, what have I got to lose? These potatoes were probably just going to be thrown out anyway. So I assembled all my ingredients. I sort of typed up my little recipe, got the video set up, got the camera set up, made the soup. Turned out awesome, by the way. It's really delicious, and I hope you will try it. But here's what Laura did. I have a camera that I use to record on, and then a few months ago, I invested in a microphone that sort of takes away all of the hollow sound when I record here at my house. So there's a receiver that plugs into the camera, and then there's also a microphone that goes in my pocket, and this little thing here is what I speak into and makes the recording. But here's the thing, there's a little button that you have to push. And while I push the little button on the part that plugs into the camera, I failed to push the little button on the microphone that is here. So as I was congratulating myself on how good the soup turned out and that I was getting this done, and I was in task mode and checking one more thing off, and I was uploading the video and typing up the recipe and getting everything all good and ready to go, when I started playing back the video, I realized, oh my, Laura's mouth is moving, but there's no sound coming out. And when I pulled the little receiver out of my pocket, I realized why. I had failed to push the blue button. When you're recording, you need to push the button. So therefore, what you're about to see is the video of what I recorded without sound. So I'm going to do a voiceover. I'm going to watch myself and sort of talk through what I'm doing. So when you watch the video, you can laugh at your friend Laura because she's making the soup, she's demonstrating how to do it, but it's sort of like one of those silent pictures. But you're going to hear my voice in the background talking through what's happening, but of course the voice you hear will not line up with the lips that are moving on the video. So here we go. You're going to have a great recipe for soup if you decide to try it, and even if you don't, you can have a good laugh at Laura's expense. So stay tuned for this week's edition of Martha Monday with video and voice not lining up but working still the same. So hope you enjoy and stay tuned for loaded baked potato soup. Well, hello, I'm Laura McFarland. Welcome to Cross My Heart Ministry. Thanks for stopping by to spend this time with us. Well, it's Monday, and that means here at Cross My Heart, we're getting in the kitchen or somewhere in the house to present an organizational tip, a cleaning tip, maybe a recipe, and that's what we're going to be doing today. Cross My Heart exists to encourage women to love God and to love His Word, and on Fridays, if you come back to the channel, you'll find one of our teaching videos or devotionals, and we hope you'll come back and check us out on Friday. If you're not a subscriber yet, of course, we would love for you to click that subscribe button and get our channel on your list, and it would be a blessing to our ministry and no cost to you. But today, here we are in the kitchen, ready to share a recipe for Martha Monday. So I hope that you'll stay tuned to watch all the way through. And again, I apologize for my mishap in recording ahead of time without clicking the button to do the recording. So I'm going to try to let my voice line up as I share my recipe for loaded baked potato soup today. Now, nothing says comfort food like soup, especially when it's potato soup and when it's loaded up. So if you think about a loaded baked potato, that's kind of the inspiration for this soup today. Soup is a great meal because it freezes so well. And as my husband and Kevin and I became empty nesters, I just found that making a big pan of lasagna or a big casserole, we just got tired of it before we could eat it all. So I love making soup because not only does it freeze well, but it also sort of is a one-pot meal. You can make that soup, put the rest in the freezer, and it's all sort of in one pot. You can cut up some vegetables or some fruit, maybe add some homemade bread, and call that a meal. It's also just a great meal for make and take. If you've got a friend that's had a baby or there's been a funeral in their family, you just want to stop by with something to encourage someone, soup is a great item to make, to take, and give away to a friend. So I hope that you'll maybe consider adding this recipe to your cookbook, and might be one that you want to try. Now, I've eaten baked potato soup out, but I've got to admit that I've never really made loaded baked potato soup at home. So this was sort of an experiment for me. I sort of looked online at several different recipes and sort of made up my own based upon the ingredients that I had in my own refrigerator. The inspiration, of course, was the potatoes that I had on the shelf, but I just sort of looked around at the different ingredients that others were including in theirs and just sort of mixed and matched. The potatoes that were sitting under my counter, I had bought them to make a big meal, but I realized those potatoes were going to get wrinkly and old and I'd probably be throwing them out. So just decided that that would be the inspiration for today's Martha Monday. So I grabbed those potatoes and I went ahead and baked them ahead of time before I started recording and allowed them to cool. And so those are the inspiration that's going to go into today's soup. The recipe, of course, is available below. If you follow the link, you can download a PDF that lets you see all the ingredients that I included. Now, I called for 2.5 pounds of potatoes. Basically, that's because that's what I had left. I used my kitchen scale to measure how many I had or how much I had, because you can't just say 3 potatoes or 4 potatoes. You really need to know how much. So my potatoes are ready, but I'm going to set those aside for now and make the base for the soup. So I'm starting off with cream cheese. Now this is an 8-inch block of cream cheese. I've allowed it to sit on the counter for several minutes so it softens up a little bit. I'm going to use half of this block. So I'm just going to grab a knife, cut that block of cheese in half. I'll of course have 4 ounces left over, so if you've got some bagels at your house, or if you don't, go grab them, because you sure don't want that yummy cream cheese to go to waste. So I'm going to put the cream cheese in the pot. And then to the cream cheese, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of butter. And you know, I always use the real butter. You know, we're not going to even pretend this recipe is healthy, but it sure is going to be delicious. So we're going to melt the cream cheese, melt the butter, but I'm going to go ahead and add 3 cups of milk to that. Now, all I had was skim. If I had whole milk or 0.5% milk on hand, I would probably have used that. If I thought about it, I may have even mixed a little half and half in to substitute for some of the skim, but I threw in 3 cups of milk. Maybe the skim kind of counteracts all the calories in the cream cheese and the real butter. Who knows? But I'm going to put that milk in here. So now I've got the 3 ingredients, the 4 ounces of cream cheese, the 2 tablespoons of butter, 3 cups of milk. I'm going to give that a little stir. I'm going to take that pot over to the kitchen stove, over to my stovetop, and while it's kind of heating up, I'm going to just stir it, keep it simmering. I do not want that milk to scald, so I'm just going to keep an eye on it. I'll probably grab a whisk because I want it to be smooth. I want all that cream cheese to be melted in there into that mixture. So I'm just going to leave that on the stove very low and just keep stirring it gradually. And while it's on the stove, as I'm keeping an eye and stirring it, I'm going to give my potatoes the attention that they need. So back here to the counter, let's get these potatoes. As I mentioned earlier, I went ahead and scrubbed those well to clean them, pierced them with my fork, put them in the microwave to bake them. Now, some ladies always like to do theirs in the range in the oven, but I just did mine in the microwave oven, and I allowed time for them I poked them with a fork to make sure they were done, but then I also allowed plenty of time for them to cool, basically because I didn't want to burn my fingers. So now the next task, while I'm keeping an eye on my base that's heating over there on the stovetop, is to peel each one of these potatoes. Now they're going to peel easily because they're already cooked, of course. So as I peel away the skin, it peels very easily, just trying to avoid peeling away all of the good potato that I want to go into my soup, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and peel each one of these. I won't take time to peel all of them on camera. What could be more boring than to watch someone peel potatoes? I'm going to peel those off. I don't get too concerned if there's a little bit of peeling left there because I did wash them. But I'm going to get a couple peeled here and then let you see how I'm going to process the potatoes. Now, they're not going to be processed thin. I'm not going to put them in a blender or anything like that. Basically, they're already soft, and I'm just going to take my little chopper and chop them. They'll be kind of chunky, but I'm just going to give them a good chop. If you've got a potato masher, you can use that. I grabbed a little tool out of my gadget drawer from Pampered Chef. This is one that I use often if I'm doing hamburger or sausage. It just keeps it from getting clumped together and separates it. So I'm just going to chop all of these potatoes. They'll be kind of chunky, but I'm just going to use this tool and give it a little twist, and they'll be chunky, and I'll have quite a pile of potatoes when I'm all finished. If you have a potato masher, that might work, but I would not put these in the food processor or the blender or anything like that. Just give it a hand chop. Let me go ahead and get all of the potato off of there, and I'll just finish up off screen, get all of these chopped up for you. I'm going to go check on my soup base, give it a stir, and make sure it's all getting taken care of. And I'll be right back. I'll put all of after that is all melted, the cream cheese, the butter with the milk, and it's all heated up, I'm going to add my chopped potatoes to that mixture and then the remaining ingredients. So here we are back. The cream cheese is all melted. Everything is smooth. I got all the potatoes chopped. There's quite a pile of potatoes here. And so the next step is to add the potatoes back into the pot. I'm just going to add it back to the stove after that, get it all heated back up again. The potatoes have certainly cooled off from the time I took them out of the microwave, and I don't want to serve cold potatoes in my soup, so I'm going to put that back on the stove and give it about 15 minutes or so to heat back up and make sure that the potatoes are all heated up in this mixture. So I'm going to put all that back in there for now. It's going to go back on the stove. And remember again, my base includes 3 cups of milk, 4 ounces of cream cheese, 2 tablespoons of butter. Got all that nice and smooth, and now ready to add the potatoes to that mixture. So going to drop those in, being careful not to make too big of a mess. And it's going to be, it seemed to be just the exact amount of potatoes, actually, ladies, which was amazing because, like I said, I just measured out how many potatoes I had left in my little bowl under the counter, and that's how many potatoes I decided to put in my recipe. The soup is initially very thin. It just sort of seemed that the base, of course, was thin because everything was melted. The potatoes make it add a little bit of chunk to it. But what I found is as I cooked this, it just sort of thickened up quite a bit and just became so savory and so good. It smelled delicious while it was cooking, and I was so pleased with the results later. So I've got all the potatoes in there. I always sort of rake off the utensil I'm using. I don't like to let any bite of or morsel go down the sink. I am going to go ahead and add a couple of things before I heat it back up. This is a salt and pepper blend that I got from Sam's Club. I've been using that a lot. It's salt and pepper and garlic all in one little container, and I found it very handy when I'm making an omelet or doing various things for seasoning. I'm using 2 teaspoons of this. I put in 1 teaspoon and then, oh, forgot, let me go back and grab that 2nd teaspoon. Now, no worries if you don't have that blend. All you'll need to pick up and include is 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. I just want those 3 flavors in there. So I put those into the soup mix, and then I'm going to go ahead and add, because I had it on hand and because you always think of sour cream when you think about a baked potato, I'm going to drop in a 1/2 cup of sour cream as well. So I've got the potatoes, the milk, the cream cheese, the butter. I added the 1/2 cup of sour cream and the 2 teaspoons of my salt and pepper blend. So I'm going to get all those things kind of stirred together. The sour cream will need to sort of melt a little bit as well, and all those delicious flavors are going to mix in together. I'm going to put that back on the stove and let everything heat up nicely and give this a whirl. So let's keep this stirring, and again, I just keep it on simmer. I don't want that milk to scald, and I just keep stirring it because I don't want it to stick to the bottom of the pot or anything. So now here we are back. So I got all that going, and it's chunky because the potatoes weren't pulverized. Of course, they were chopped. So it just looks, you can see the steam coming off. It's just a hearty soup. It tastes absolutely delicious. I'm gonna finish it off now. 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese. It was about an 8-ounce chunk of cheese. I rarely buy shredded cheese anymore. I like to buy it in the blocks and then shred it myself. So I shredded about 1/2 of that, and it measures out to about 1 cup of chopped. So I'm gonna add this here and just sort of mix it in. That'll add a little color as well as, of course, some yummy flavor. I'd probably do this right before I'm fixing to serve it, but it's gonna get melted in there and add a little color as well. Then I've gone ahead and diced up some green onions and some bacon bits. So I did that ahead of time, and then I chopped those. So I'm going to just go ahead and serve this up in a clear bowl so you can sort of see what it looks like. I'll also take a photograph off camera because it's just so difficult for you to see it as I'm recording. But doesn't that, I hope you can see how thick and rich and yummy that is. And then when you sprinkle on just a little bit of the green onions and just a little bit of those bacon bits, oh my goodness, it just looks so delicious. Now, if you're looking for comfort food, could anything sound more like comfort food than loaded baked potato soup? I'm not even going to pretend to tell you that this is healthy, but that's why I'm going to enjoy a little bit of it and then put the rest in the freezer and save it for another day. What a great way to use up some of the ingredients you already have in your kitchen, on your counter, in your refrigerator. It went together quickly. I think it's delicious. And I'm going to go ahead off camera and enjoy a cup or a bowl of my loaded baked potato soup. I hope you'll give it a try as well. Maybe your family needs one last pot of homemade soup before spring arrives in Northwest Arkansas or wherever it is that you're watching today. Leave me a note below and let me know what's your family's favorite soup at your house. And I hope you have a blessed and a warm week wherever you are and whatever you're doing. For Cross My Heart Ministry, I'm Laura McFarland. Thanks so much for spending this time with us today. Delicious.